Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Psychology and Spirituality. I'm your host, Marcia Trajano, and today I'm joined by the brilliant and insightful Rafael Rezende. Hi, Rafael. How are you doing?
Hi, Marcia. Pretty good. Thank you so much for having me here again. It's a great pleasure and honor.
Wonderful, wonderful. It's so good. But just to give you a sense, in the last few episodes, in fact, but specifically the last one, we've been exploring the topic of family dynamics and how they shape our emotional resilience. And I just welcome everyone here today to go into this maybe deep dive session into the challenges and blessings of family life. And today, specifically, we're going to talk about parenting autistic children. So, Joanna de Ângelis calls the family this spiritual constellation, which can really shift our perspective, right, Rafael? Because we're not just talking about blood relations, we're talking about this union of spirits, each with their own path of evolution. So, from this spiritist perspective, the family is meant to be a place of what? Fraternity, love, and most importantly, growth, more growth, especially. And if we think about it, every conflict, every misunderstanding is actually an opportunity for evolution. And this is particularly relevant for parents of autistic children. Daily life may involve stress, misunderstanding, and simply put, exhaustion, right? You're just exhausted with life. But those moments are also the best opportunities to practice what? Patience, empathy, and unconditional love. And that brings up our central question for today. How can any family, especially parents of children with autism, navigate conflicts, disturbance while fostering love, understanding, and spiritual growth? So, Raphael, I'm going to give the mic to you and ask you, would you mind talk a little bit about autism or autism spectrum disorder, ASD, and and then I would love after you give that framework of what it is, we can move on to your personal story on that. Would you mind?
Okay, so thanks again for having me, Marcia, and hello, everyone. Talking about autism, it's a very special topic to me, and you guys are gonna know soon, pretty soon, why. But autism, I mean, you can see it's dramatically increasing. The incidence is increasing each year, and the big question is why. That's what I've been asked all the time. So people come to me and say, "Why is I see so many autistic kids now?" And that's obviously one point is diagnosed that has improved considerably, but also something else is going on which we don't understand, and we're trying to. But autism in general, what I like to tell parents and everyone, it's not a disease. So, autism is a neurodevelopmental disorder that happens in some kids in a way that their brain shapes differently from a normal, typical child. But the point is that I like it's a more philosophical question is what is normality? So we all want everyone to fit what society think it normal means, but for those kids, they see normality, they see reality or life in a different way that we must respect. So that's the first thing. And another thing I like to say is for a mom, for a dad, don't feel, you know, guilt or don't blame yourself for having autistic kids because many people say autism is caused by genetic disorder. It's a genetic disorder, but in fact, we cannot say that there are genes involved, but we consider a condition that is polygenic, which means that so many genes involved, not only one. So you cannot establish a cause based on genetics. So that's one of the points. And now we know there is 3 levels of autism: level 1, 2, and 3. And level 3 is the most severe, which requires substantial, very substantial support from family, from um, everyone around. So level 2 is a moderate support, and level 1 it's a mild support. So those 3 levels are important because treatment can change based on the level the kid is. So in level 3, which is the most severe, it's where we find those kids who are nonverbal, for example. So they don't talk. They have other comorbidities, for example, seizures or epilepsy diagnosed, and this obviously brings a little bit more challenge to the family. But in general, so as ASD or autism, including also ADHD, dyslexia, and many other conditions, that it's part of what we now call neurodivergence. And that's the name. I think is the best name we could give it because
Yeah.
it's divergent, right? So it's not the same as most of us.
And Rafael, this is from memory because at work we do have a neurodivergent employee support group, right? And they're amazing. There's many talks of explaining what it is, what it is not, and how, for example, I if I have ADHD, right?
Mm-hmm.
How different I am in terms of external stimuli to somebody with a different type of brain, right? I guess I'm saying it correctly. But anyways, one of the things that I heard from one of those information sessions was that 80% of Silicon Valley employees are autistic.
Hmm.
And I thought it was very interesting because I would say high functioning autistic children, now adults, but they are the best and the best for that type of work.
Yeah.
So I thought it was so interesting.
Yeah, they usually the autistic people, they're very smart, rationally talking, but the problem is the emotion. So connecting, the rationality and emotion. So that's the biggest challenge we have to face. That's why also they tend to be very secluded, very introvert. So they have difficulty in socializing. So those are some symptoms we see in autistic kids, and obviously grown-ups too. But it is possible, if you diagnose early, to somehow change it or adjust that kid to society, which is not, I mean, obviously it's a hard point because sometimes we kind of make these kids um, stop shining, because
Mhm.
even though you don't think they're shining, but they are shining the way they are. And when you try to put things, close everything around it, they must fit society, that somehow affect them a little bit. But on the other hand, they need to eventually, they're going to grow up, they need to work, they need to be independent. So you need somehow have a training, but always respecting the child's pace. So that's one of the things I also tell parents. Listen to your kid. Don't try to rush things. It's gonna happen. So just go with the rhythm they show you. And so that's one point. It's like most of them are very, very smart, but they also have these challenges. And they can have, like, in terms of symptoms, they may show like repetitive behavior. As I said, difficulty in socializing. They cannot make eye contact. It's really hard for them. And sometimes they're very anxious, and that's why they keep doing those movements, sometimes with the
Mhm.
hand, sometimes like going back and forth. That's like to control their anxiety. And some of them are very agitated and have insomnia, for example. Others are more depressive. Um, it's really, that's why we call it spectrum. It's a huge spectrum.
Yeah.
Huge,
And
huge.
and I know for parents, especially if you're a first-time parent, it must be very difficult not to understand, and I'm going to say air quote here, what's wrong with my child? Why is he or she crying so much or not being able to sleep so much, right,
Yeah,
Rafael?
and the biggest challenge here is for the parents to accept the possibility they have an autistic child in their home. So that's one thing they need to understand, because what I feel is like most parents, because they don't understand what autism means, they kind of feel they're afraid of going to the doctor, and doctor say, "Oh, your child is autistic." But
Mhm.
that kind of, delays the diagnose and everything else. So it is important. And one of the first signs for an autistic child is when they're breastfeeding. So
Mhm.
if they don't keep eye contact with mom, usually, usually is the first sign that the baby, that child will have some neurodevelopmental disorder. So that's one thing, but obviously not always the case. But it's just, don't be afraid of having a child with autism. It's actually a privilege.
Yeah, yeah, I want to go with that next, but um, you're saying, go and get a diagnosis of whatever is may be happening to the child. What type of doctor would a parent take their child?
So the first one is the pediatrician, of course.
Okay.
So you go to the pediatrician and explain what you're feeling, explain what you experience at home, because in a 30-minute, 20-minute visit, it's impossible for the pediatrician to actually diagnose anything. So usually he's not the one who's going to do it. He's going to refer you to another professional who has the ability to diagnose with tests they have. But the first person to go is the child's pediatrician. So that's the first thing, and I'm sure the doctor will be able to direct the parents to the right professional to have a certain and definitive diagnosis.
Yeah. So let's just pivot a little bit because you said autism is a very special topic to
Yeah.
you. So tell us why is it a special topic to you?
So you know, my childhood was really challenging as well. So at that time, I was born in the countryside, it's a very small town in Minas Gerais in Brazil, in the early 80s. So at that time, there wasn't any diagnose, especially like in small towns, and nobody had ever heard that word autism. But
Mhm.
I had many signs and symptoms that, literally I drove my parents crazy. So they didn't know what to do. So I had so many issues, and went to so many doctors, psychologists, therapists, and but they actually, they didn't know what to do. So that was the truth. But there was one point that every autistic person has is some areas usually related to art that you need to somehow find out and stimulate that. In my case, was music. So music actually brought me to life. And after that, I grew up. I had a relatively normal teenagehood and adulthood, like early ages. Everything seemed to be normal. But then, in 2018, I had my kids. So I'm a father of triplets, and two of them actually were eventually diagnosed with autism. And but what the thing that I usually, I mean, I like to say is like the boy. I have two girls and one boy. The boy Lucas, he's the one who had moderate kind of level 1 to 2 autism, and the other girl was more like a borderline. So they were diagnosed when they were like around 1 year of age, very early. And everything after that, like all the support we have, the ABA, which is the psychological therapy they had, occupational therapy, speech therapy, and everything. So if you look at them today, you pretty much don't tell that they are autistic. But you know what actually was interesting is that I knew I would have an autistic son even before they were born. And that's the dream I tell in every talk I give, because I think it's very impressive. And I dreamed with all of them even before we knew my wife was pregnant. So, and they all came to me explaining what they had to do. But the boy was very interesting because they came. And I remember when he was coming towards me, I was like, I was in the street, it was night, and he came, he was like around 21, 25 years of age, and he came to me, and we shook hands, and he said, "Hi, my name is Copernicus Popolus, and I'm coming from the ancient Greece to be your son." And I said, "Well, that's so weird. You have that name." So that's the only thing I was thinking about was his name. So what? That's such a weird name. He laughed. He said, "Oh, I'm not here because of the name." I said, "Okay, but what are you here for?" He said, "Well, I'm a very smart person, but I have a deep problem with my emotions. So I can connect my brain, my heart, and that's what the area I want you to work with me." And I said, "Well, that's interesting, but your name is not nice. So I have to give you another name." And I said, "Since you're coming from Greece, I'm gonna call you Lucas. It's also a Greek name." And he laughed. He said, "No, that's not the reason I'm coming," and so on. So, and when he was born, and when I saw him the first time, I looked at the nurse that was around. He was all three were in the NICU for about 2 months. And I look at him and look at her and said, "Hey, I believe he's autistic." And she said, "How can you possibly know? You just be born." I mean, it was like 1 week ago. And I said, "Well, I told the dream." She was quiet, didn't know she believed or not. But eventually, like 2 months ago, I met her in the hospital after 7 years. And she actually hugged me and said, "Well, how is Lucas doing?" I said, "Well, he's autistic." And she said, "Oh, I remember the dream you told me, and I actually believed it." So it was nice because it was so real. And after that, since I'm assistant professor at a hospital here in Boston, so I have my research lab. So then I said, why not to start this journey and trying to understand autism. And by that time, actually last year, I also was diagnosed with autism. So then I said, okay, everything makes sense now, because everything I went through, my childhood, and all the challenges I still have, but I somehow overcame it. Um, you know, helps me to help my child. And doing the research is actually something that I could eventually help understand the material or physical cause of autism, because as an spiritist podcast, we know that the core of the problem here is spiritual and not physical. But the medicine and they don't quite understand that yet, so we need to go for the physical cause too. And that's when I start to investigate the gut brain axis and maternal fetal crosstalk in the development of autism.
And the research is going quite well, right? So you're getting some interesting results
Yeah, I'm
from
trying
that.
to. Yeah,
Mhm.
we are trying to get to the bottom of it. It's obviously not easy, but it's multifactorial. But
Mhm.
we're gonna get there.
Awesome. This is so good to hear. But as you can see, if we go back to the base, because you mentioned it's the core of this discussion is really spiritual, not material. So
Hmm.
besides the fact that I believe the entire collective humanity is very appreciative of what you're doing at your lab to understand and maybe let's say even predict, right, if there are some of the symptoms or some of the drivers
Yeah.
to autism that we could control. But if we go back to that, we can see that um, right, and I mentioned before, from that spiritist perspective, the family unit is really meant to be this very sacred space, right, for learning and teaching, fraternity, love, and this is so important. But when we talk about neuroscience, which is your field, right, we also see that whatever the moment of alarm or difficulty or long-term challenge, and I'm thinking as I say this to your childhood
Yeah.
where there were no diagnosis, right, it's important that even our response to that event, if you will, it can shape the child's developing brain, right?
Yeah.
So, and what I'm talking about perhaps is the stressful interactions
Yes.
can trigger or heighten the anxiety that the child may already have,
Yeah.
right? Versus that respectful, calm, love, and communication.
Yes.
And I just bringing back to what Joanna de Ângelis tells us, which is the home is like a source of light that spreads through society. So when we nurture understanding within that spiritual constellation, we are elevating our children spiritually and preparing them to face their challenges because the world's already challenged, right? Rafael, we know that.
Yeah.
So I was wondering if you could tell us from your own experience, perhaps, or from your research, etc. But are there any tips that you can bring? And you already gave several to us already, but is there something that you've seen and you nurtured and that has led to uh, face the difficulties of your family in a way that everybody else can listen and take to heart as well?
Yeah. So one thing is, having a autistic child at home is very challenging. We are not
Mm.
discussing that. We know the parents need to know the life will change forever. And that's the first step. Obviously, for everyone, for every couple who will have a child, the life will change. But when you have a child of autism, it will change quite hard
Yeah.
because you want your child to be the same as your neighbor's child. You want them to bring them to a playground. They want them your child to interact with everyone. You want, but then you face yourself in a birthday party for your friends or neighbor's kid, and your child is screaming, is crying out loud, is running around, it's aggressive, and people come to you, especially Brazilians, I have to say, because that's our how you were educated. They'll tell you you need to educate your child better.
Hmm.
This is because
That's
you're not.
terrible, huh?
It's
Yeah.
terrible, but it happens all the time. And your own parents sometimes say the same thing if they don't know what's going on. So this is absolutely upsetting to the couple. I mean, the mom and dad. So,
Hmm.
and if you don't know how to digest that, you're gonna pass all that anger to your child because at the end of the day, who is the reason for all the stress you're going through? It's
Yeah.
your child. So why do I deserve to have a child with autism? Why do I have to go through all these difficulties while my friend right here has a beautiful child, very normal behavior, everything is going on pretty well, and why it's happening to me? So this type of
Yeah.
victimization
Mentality. Yeah. Yeah.
mentality needs to end immediately because that's gonna kill you, and it's gonna kill your child too. So that's why you see many couples splitting after they have an autistic child, or your kid becoming more anxious, and sometimes they start talking, but then they go back to nonverbal because they get so stressed, something they're just absorbing from the environment and they don't know where it's coming from. So the parents need to be their support. That's the first thing. Another thing is, once you understand that, your life is changing, but you have the biggest or maybe the most beautiful mission of all people on the face of earth. Because having an autistic child at home is going to teach you so much that later on you're going to thank the God and the kid for being your son, for being your daughter, because that's what is going to make you a better person. But one thing that we do until now these days is that I mentioned in another lecture I gave is to talk to them when they're deep sleeping. So, and this is interesting because when you look at a child, you tend to think the spirit is as short and as naive as the child. But we forget that that's just a period of time where the brain is developing. The spirit cannot manifest itself in its full capacity. So, but when they're sleeping, we know that the spirit is actually, you know, getting out of the body and experiencing the spiritual world. So at that time, when you talk to your child, you think they're sleeping, but the spirit is actually listening to you. And by the time, many times you do it, repetition, you're going to begin to see something is going on. Something is going to change. If the child is aggressive, you're going to start seeing it calming down. If the child is depressive, you're going to begin to see them getting more joy. So, but it takes time and you need to repeat it all the time. So the two things, just to summarize, accept the situation. Don't think you're a victim. There is purpose that God has for us that we don't understand. Just accept it. Second, talk to your child while they're sleeping. So you're going to see the difference. It's dramatic difference. And I can tell you by 2 months, 3 months, you're doing that every night, you're going to feel the difference. Because then it's like, what do you say? So you just need to reinforce. First thing, my son, my daughter, I love you. We love you. We are here to support you. I know life is hard. I know maybe you don't even want it to be here because you knew every challenge you're going to go through. But we are here to support you as a family. So grow, shine, shine. That's what you need to do. You're very smart. You're very loved. You're very intelligent. So just give lots of compliments, and he or she will understand you and change the behavior just based on what you say. But say it from the bottom of your heart. That's what is the key point. Not just saying because you have to, from the bottom of your heart. That's when the vibration gets in touch as well.
Yeah, I love to hear that. And because it starts to make sense, right? They're very smart and they have most simplistic way to say a disconnect between emotion and the rational thinking.
Yeah.
And this is exactly what they need, the idea that this being that has been entrusted to you as a parent is loved thoroughly,
Yes.
right?
And
Yeah,
I can tell you, my son, um, he didn't want either me or my wife to even touch him when he was a baby.
yeah. Oh my goodness, yeah,
So it was very tough because you knew like the repulsion. I mean, he didn't want to be touched. He was so hypersensitive.
yeah.
But now he is the most, I would say, loving and caring of all three. So he says, I love you all the time. He kisses, he hugs. And it's amazing how he understood it. And just by us teaching him in the dreams when he's dreaming or, out of his body, by talking to him
Yeah.
at night, and also giving love and support, because that makes the kid, okay, so I'm loved. Why not love, right? So after he realized that, it's completely different. So that's what I'm saying. It works. At least it worked pretty well for us.
Yeah, that's such a great testimony right there. But do you mind if we go back to something that you mentioned in the beginning, which to me is an interest of mine, which is the idea of normal,
Hmm.
right? And it's a very fluid notion. We all know what was normal at our grandparents is not normal today.
Yeah.
And what is normal for my grandchildren will not be normal to me, for example. And so that idea that normal is what's within, and I'm putting, making a gesture of a square, like I'm thinking of a piece of paper, right? And for anything that you do in that piece of paper, you leave margins.
Yeah.
And there are those that are inside the margin, the so-called normal, and outside of the margin are those many times marginalized, not welcome, not understood. But those were the ones, if you look at history, those are the ones that made big, you know, cataclysmatic, if you will, just this very, very big transformational changes. And we can talk about our friend, right? The Swiss uh, therapist, psychiatrist, therapist, called Gustav Jung, who many people could not understand him for a while, but he did exactly what he needed to do to bring the beauty of Jungian um,
Psychology.
framework.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Jungian psychology. Yes. So I'm thinking, do you mind talking a little bit about understanding? Because perhaps you who are here with us today may not have an autistic child, but may have a child with a different situation, right?
Mhm. Yeah. So I think to get to the core of this question, you need to understand the spiritual part of this as well.
Yes.
So I mentioned in the beginning the levels of autism. Let's say one in one extreme and three in the another extreme. So maybe my answer is going to be a little bit long, but I want to get to the point to understand
And we have
how,
time. Go ahead.
yeah, how you can change this concept of normality. So if you think about a level three child where the signs and symptoms are very severe, there are comorbidities also associated, like epilepsy and other conditions. We think those spirits are actually reincarnating to somehow um, reestablish the track, something they did wrong before. We called expiation. It's where you come, to somehow adjust yourself to the right track, and that was the only way possible, was to come in a body that's somehow very challenging to the spirit. But if you think about the level one, those spirits, if you remember the book by Divaldo Franco and Manuel Filomeno de Miranda called Planetary Transition, so the spirit manual will tell us about the spirits coming from another constellation, from another star called Alcyone, or Alcyon. I don't know how you pronounce that in English, but it's a star from the Pleiades. We can even see the star on the night sky. And those spirits, according to him, they are much more evolved than us here on Earth. Those spirits are coming, reincarnating in these bodies here on Earth to bring not only moral changes to the world, but also physical changes. So our physical body is not completely, I would say, developed yet. There are points that are developing, and one of these points are in the frontal lobe of our brain. So this is where we need to go in terms of super consciousness, according to another book, but now Chico Xavier and Andrea Luiz, called The Greater World. The Greater World. So that you have the three levels of the mental house. So the third level is the frontal lobe. The frontal lobe is where we will rationalize and control our emotions, especially control our instincts that are in the first level or the first floor. So those spirits are actually coming and making pinpoint mutations in our DNA to make this new body ready in a few or actually many years to come. And in those cases, imagine those spirits are coming from environment that are much more evolved. They don't even need to verbalize when they talk. It's just by thinking. And they come to such a dense body, such an imperfect body, and they need to adjust to all these bad things around. So, what do you think the spirits are going to do in the first years of life? They're going to be very different because they don't want to go and do stupid things that most of us want to do. They want to focus on the mission they have to do. That's why they need to do it. That's where they came from. So, why to waste time with bullshit?
Yes.
So, they will have difficulties in learning our language, which is obvious. They don't use that anymore, and now they're. It's like imagine yourself going to gorilla body. How do you feel to adjust to their talk, to adjust to their brain, which is a way less evolved than the ones you used to have in your star, in your planet, whatever. So then it comes to this child who, see, they are very quiet. They don't adjust very well to the environment. They get anxious. Look, just pay attention to the symptoms.
Mhm.
So they will be anxious, sometimes depressive, sometimes agitated, and they will have difficulty in communicating. So what are these signs and symptoms I just said? It's autism. So most of these autistic kids on level one, they are actually, spiritually speaking, spirits from other planets or other stars much more evolved than us to make our planet better, to make our physical bodies better. So then it comes to the normality thing you said. So what is normal to them? So if you were transported now to their planet, to their star, do you think it would be normal? So then you see the normality is completely, um, you know,
Relative. Yeah.
relative and abstract,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So that's what I like to tell people. So what is normal to your child? It's not normal to most of people, but it doesn't mean it's wrong. It's just a different perspective. That's why I said in the beginning, just listen to your child because they're going to start showing signs of things that are, you need to work on, obviously, but you need to have this open mind to respect their pace, the rhythm,
Yeah.
and to better help them.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it what you're saying, right? Look at we are all like ice, the ice crystals. We are all different from each other, but those are beautiful little crystals that are very, very unique and beautiful in their own. But I wanted to maybe pivot to something else. Because you provided something quite interesting, Rafael, which is the really looking at the children as spirits, right? That came and are incarnated, reincarnated in as your children, but you work with them as spirits at night and looking at their mission, et cetera, et cetera. I love it. But by talking to them at night, you're exercising this. But I believe there are other, perhaps, um, tools that we can talk about it, right? And I'm referencing now Joanna de Ângelis when she says, if things are not going so well at home, regardless of the source for those challenging times, daily prayer, right, is really important. Perhaps reading spiritual texts can also help you, the parent, etc. Are there any other tools in the Spiritist toolkit that you think we could just name here?
Gospel at home.
Okay.
So that's, I would say the most important ones. Obviously,
Yeah.
the gospel at home, you're gonna do it with your kids and
Hmm.
in a ludic way to
Yeah.
make them understand. And as they grow, you can begin to talk, more open about the situations, fear they're
Yeah.
facing at school, and things like that. Obviously, the evangelization,
Yeah.
that's bringing the kid to be to the spiritist house and to get in touch with other kids and to get involved.
Yeah.
So in right, and those are the things I believe will help tremendously to get this child in touch, and not only in terms of learning, but also in terms of vibration.
Yeah.
That's one of the things. Another point of autistic kids, I wouldn't say most, but a great number of them are also mediums.
Ah,
So
interesting.
and they don't understand that. That's another thing because they have this constant contact with the spiritual world, but if the vibration or the symphony is not that great, obviously what kind of spirit to be around,
Yeah.
and it becomes an obsession. So all these issues that a child may face and will bring even more challenge to the parents. So that's why bringing them to the Spiritist house, or if you're not a Spiritist, maybe you're just listening to this podcast, but you're Catholic or whatever religion you have,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
just try to make a good environment or bring your child to your community or religious community to be around other children and
Yeah.
share the same type of thoughts and vibrations. That
Yeah.
help a lot, and keep doing that at home too. So yeah, that's I don't know if you
Yeah.
want to add anything.
No, I would like to just say, just to put my words into you from your words, but it's the idea that as any children, right, autistic children, perhaps in a deeper sense, but they absorb the emotions deeply, right? Even if the response may not be typical. That's why we talk about not neurodivergent or atypical, right?
Yeah,
But from that perspective, all of us as parents, we need to really focus on ourselves in terms of calmness, consistency, and love as the basic guideline for the life at home. And if we go back to Joanna de Ângelis on the topic of families, she always says there should not be any taboo in a home that is filled with love, right?
yeah,
Whatever that may be, there should not be any off topic, difficult topic as they may be. We need to bring them with respect, with a sense of moral responsibility of everyone, but also with the idea that they should be available to be discussed with care and, of course, age appropriate clarity.
yeah.
So it is so important for us to talk about this specifically. So I really appreciate it, and I can see we're about to close. Do you have any final thoughts, Rafael?
So I think my final thoughts, I would say having an autistic child is not for someone who wants it, but for someone who actually can have it. So it's I would say it's a blessing, even though your life is going to be it's going to be challenged a lot, but it is a blessing. The patience and all the understanding I'm having now with my kid and with my son and my daughter, my other daughter too, who's also diagnosed with autism. So it makes you feel you grow, you have a purpose in life.
Mhm.
So another thing is, again, don't blame yourself for having a child with autism. It's not your fault. There's all like a purpose and work together in family to make this a better life for everyone. And keep Jesus in mind always, always, because that's the most important thing. And that's why bring your kid to your church, do the gospel at home or whatever religious actions or things you want to do. Keep talking about Jesus, keep talking about the good things, keep stimulating your child to telling them they're smart, they're strong, we're going to face this challenge together, and just leave it up. I think that's the point. Enjoy it because it's a very unique life. You have to enjoy it.
Love it. Let's enjoy the ride, right?
Yeah.
But just to summarize before close, right? And I'm using Joanna de Ângelis um terms. The family is that spiritual constellation, and it doesn't matter where you live, right? Where you live in the world, what cultural heritage you have, conflicts are inevitable. But as I mentioned before, how we respond to them, especially if you're a parent of autistic children, can transform those challenges into opportunities of growth.
Yeah.
So every moment should be reflective of patience, empathy, and those more teachings are maybe bricks that you're laying into the spiritual foundation of your home, but the entire society. So I'd say even the small gesture, listening. I think you mentioned music was very good for you, right? To maybe bring art and all its artistic expressions, but also validating each child as they are in each phase, guiding them, and it will be an incredible, incredible gift to all of us. So, right? If we were to say a practical invitation, because Joanna de Ângelis always gives us some invitations, is just to reflect it in your home and think about what are your challenges? Are there any points of tension? But approach it with honesty, with love and respect, right? But I want to say thank you, Rafael. Thank you so much for sharing your journey with us today. And for all of you who are here with us, if this is the first time you're listening to our program, please note that Psychology and Spirituality weekly talks are based on the works by Joanna de Ângelis. I want to also thank our sponsors, Mansão do Caminho, the United States Spiritist Federation, the International Spiritist, I can't talk today, International Spiritist Council, and AMI Brazil. Thank you, everyone. Until next time.
Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day or night, whatever it is. Thank you
Bye,
so much.
everyone.